Hello, good evening and welcome along to day 4, round 3 of the CIB Egyptian Open 2025. We're into the last 16. We're going to be focusing on the bottom half of the draw here today at the Great Pyramids of Giza in Cairo. It's a fabulous backdrop. Amanda Sobhy versus Nour El Shabini gets going at 7 o'clock. But before that, a half an hour pre-show with myself, Michael Absalom, Lisa Aiken and Joey Barrington. Welcome to the studio, guys.
Yeah, great to be with you again, Michael.
Good to be back. We're going to get straight into the thick of it here today. We're going to discuss last night and some of the good, the bad and the ugly of the game of squash, and we're going to start with the men's game, if that's okay. So just first of all, your thoughts on what we saw last night, and then we'll maybe just paint it with a bit of colour and a few pictures. But just what was your overriding feeling from watching last night's match?
I mean, it was an incredibly long night, and it dragged on. The inevitable was going to happen. There wasn't going to be any. I mean, with the women's game, that was slightly different, which Lisa will touch upon. But with the men's, it was the inevitable results, really, and they dragged on quite a lot. And it was a hard sell of squash last night in terms of the rallies, the breaking up of play, and just quality squash for an event such as this, and the players that were on show, really. So, you know, we were on the comms, and it was hard work all round. And from a viewing point of view, I'm sure a lot of the viewers would have found the same, and any viewers that aren't squash savvy that would have somehow had a look at that. I mean, it would be amazing for them to decipher, you know, what was going on the court, because there was so many stoppages for different reasons. And it's you know, it was hard work. It was hard work on the comms, and it was hard work for everyone else watching. We're
going to come back to the men's, and we're really going to sort of dissect that. But from the women's side of things, it was what we wanted to see. Hania El Hammamy winning 3-2. 2-love down, came back and won that match. And I guess they're the real role models of where we want the sport to go, the women.
Yeah, and they have been for a long time. I think whenever we're talking about stoppages, we're talking about issues that we're having with players or incidents or delays in play, we're never really talking about the women, to be honest. Granted, there's a couple of players there that are culprits, but yeah, the men's game, in my opinion, is not in a good place. And I think last night, as a whole evening of entertainment, or a show if you like, it was really disappointing. As Joey said, I found it very difficult to commentate on the squash. There was little percentages in there where the squash was absolutely fantastic. There was exciting rallies, but I'm talking a really small percent there, and the rest was disappointing, and there was a lot of drivel.
No, it was. I mean, it was, you know, like I said, it was a comparison between the men and the women, and you know, and the women they get on with it, and you know, it might have been straightforward for Gohar, but you know, El Hammamy battling away as well, and you just, what you see is what you get with the women. It does what it says on the tin.
Yeah. Well, we're going to have a quick look, first of all, back at Mostafa Asal's match. The world #1, remember, up against Abou Eleinen, and here he is here in action. Just so much stoppages, disruption, heavy movement, physical. I mean, it just wasn't the sort of squash that anyone here wanted to watch.
No, I think when you look at this match as a whole in terms of statistics, there was not many rallies actually outrightly won by winners. There wasn't many winners hit.
6 winning shots in the whole match. 6 winning shots, 46 points, 40 decisions, 61 minutes in durations, 6 winning shots from the world #1.
Well, I mean, you look at I mean, you're just saying the stats there, which speak for themselves, but also the duration of the games. The scoreline was really one-sided. You're looking at kind of 11 threes, 11 fives, but 23-minute duration games, and it wasn't long, arduous rallies at all. You know, it's warm conditions, as we know, out here, but you know, that to me, it's just it's weird.
What's the cause? Where's it coming from?
There's a few things, obviously. There's the floor that's picking up a lot of sweat, and players are slipping on that, and they've got their own complaints, their own personal complaints about the glass floor. But it's more, what are the players doing? How are they moving? And how are they going into each other and just creating all round a lot of unnecessary traffic, you know.
So the players themselves are causing the problem?
At times, 100%, at times. And I think when they watch this match, we all watch our matches back. When they watch that back, I would like them to just take a bit of a neutral stance, which is difficult when you're watching yourself, and go, how does this look as a game overall? Am I contributing to the traffic issues? Am I causing any scenarios here where I could have cleared better, I could have moved better, I could have given a better line, or am I just trying to play squash, or am I looking to do other things and create these issues?
Yeah, I mean, you know, speaking from a purist point of view, the best squash matches are when the referee doesn't really feature. I mean, that's in sport, really. You know, when you see great matches, great football matches, you know, you see the referee not really necessarily having to be involved. And
but this is a sport where the referee has to get involved, because a player can review a situation.
Absolutely, but take this into consideration. Okay, you've got Naila Killis and Gina Kennedy. Yes, they're on the back courts. Doesn't really make a difference. They had 89 minutes of high quality, ridiculously entertaining squash. I would love to see the stats in terms of minutes played, winners won, and referee interferences. There would be barely any.
And the amount of time wasted when the court cleaners come on to mop up the sweat.
Zero. They're just cracking on. They're focusing on how can we win, and how can we make this the best quality match ever. Listen to Naila Killis's interview after. She's just come off a massive match like that, ridiculous battle, and all she's praising is Gina for being an incredible warrior, and both of them being so proud to produce the fight that they did that day. That's what it's all about.
Yeah, I mean, that's very cool. And I mean, you know, when you've got that kind of respect where it is that honourable battle that is brutal, but then after the aftermath, and you've got the respect for the opponents. I mean, you know, the matchup with Mostafa and Abou, they don't get on particularly well. There's the usual, you know, I think Ali coming into it, you know, would have had a lot of things in his head, and that was a bit of a telling sign when he had an impact and then took all that unnecessary time. I hope he's okay. I think he will be, you know, with his neck, and then coming on and then not trying. In the women, they would have just kind of carried on with it and finished the match no matter what. We've seen that so many times, and I don't know, it gets a bit handbaggy for me.
Do you think sport, squash, it's under the microscope here tonight. We're in the entertainment business. It's about going out there, entertaining, performing. And if you watch that for the first time, what would you be thinking of as a new squash fan, as a seasoned squash fan? If you'd watched just that match alone last night, the world #1 in action, you've paid your subscription, your money, or you've come here, you've made it all the way out to the pyramids past security, and you've got here and you've watched that, what are you going to be feeling at the end of the night?
Well, you're going to be very confused about the rules for a start. I mean, it was to try and decipher that for somebody that's not a squash fan. I mean, it's hard enough for everyone else that's you know, squash savvy, that are trying to determine, you know, what's going on with necessary decisions, the lines that players are taking, what players are doing. I mean, it's just so kind of mixed up now.
What needs to change?
Well, I mean, there's so much focus on the referees. You know, there's certain things that I don't necessarily feel had to come in, you know, with that kind of slightly savage demeanour to the players. You know, we had a lovely interview with John Mazzarella yesterday, who had a real art of being able to keep a tab on the match, but also have an engagement with the players.
And is that in tone? That's his tone of voice?
His tone. He's just got an ability to. With John, I mean, he's had an interesting life, and he's had a lot of people have a go at him outside of squash, and he has a very good way of not getting defensive, and he does deal with those situations brilliantly, and he did in so many different matches. But I feel that's definitely a factor that gets the players' backs up, but it's the players themselves. You know, the players themselves need to sort themselves out, and the example of it is what Lisa said. When you see the women's matches, look, there've been Gohar and El Hammami that have literally nearly killed each other on court, and they sorted it out. You know, they don't have to be the best of friends, and they're not, but when they play now, it's better than what it was. They sort themselves out.
They took accountability. They took accountability for what their rival and their matches were turning out to be, and they were not particularly pleasant
to watch. And what was that? Just remind us, because we're always getting new squash fans. What was that rivalry like, and what is it like now?
It was very intense. It was very physical. It was overly aggressive. It didn't need to be that aggressive. They had a look about them that was, it was kind of obvious that they would do anything. They would hurt each other to win, and they wouldn't be shy about doing that. They've watched that back. They've learned that lesson. They know that that's not a good look for the sport. It's not a good look for them.
Is that driven by coaches, by family support team? Who's the person that pulls them aside and said?
It's a mix of everything. Ultimately, you know, to some degree, we egg on that rivalry, and it just got a little bit out of context. But coaches, parents, the players themselves, it comes down to the athlete. It's an individual sport. They have to watch it back and take responsibility. And I would just like some of the men to be able to take a look at that and go, maybe we should do that as well.
It's damaging for the sport, isn't it? It could be damaging for the likes of James Willstrop, his reputation, former world #1 himself. And, you know, how's he going to be feeling listening to this discussion, having watched that last night?
Well, what he was, you know, his education on squash was, you can play a fairer player that would get on there, be an absolute nightmare to play because of the level that he played, and his stubbornness and his competitive instinct. But you came off playing him, talking from personal experience, you came off playing him, and if you lost, which happened a good few times, you came off and you felt, you know what, that was a pretty amazing experience, you know. And it's the same with the likes of Omar Shabano. You come off court, you've done all 4 corners. You know, I used to run around like a golden retriever, but you did all 4 corners. You had this match, and you felt, you know what, I've actually played a wonderful match here. I've lost, but I'm annoyed. But wow, what an experience! I've learnt a lot. Exactly. Not this kind of confused, kind of, oh my goodness me, it was this, and then picking out silly things. Oh, it would have changed if it wasn't for that refereeing thing. But then you go back to what you're talking about, people in the corner of the players. There's people that stir up players and create a negativity about everything. And that's the last thing a player needs. Whether that's coaches, parents, they all get involved. In other sports, they're told not to get involved. And if they do, they're like...
How does a player manage that then? How does a player manage sort of 10, 15 voices coming in there? How do they know which is the most authentic route to take?
Well, they need to trust themselves and listen to only the voices that they want to listen to. At the end of the day, it comes down to your own values as a person and as a player, and truly reflect and be like, who am I and what do I want to show the world? Because all eyes are on them when that door gets closed and the lights are on. And then think, who do I want in my corner then? Surround yourself with great people, no shock, you will also be great. So at the end of the day, it comes down to the player. It's their responsibility, it's their game, and it's their performance.
Okay, unfortunately it wasn't just the one match last night that was disappointing. There was a second, and again it was the men sort of letting the side down really here. This was Joel Makin and Mohamed Zakaria going toe-to-toe. Joel Makin eventually coming out the victor, but again, so many decisions in this one, so many breakages in play, and again, just another one of those really messy games that no one really enjoyed.
Yeah, there was some real quality in here as well. I mean, there was a lot of quality. I think Joel Makin, came into this, I wouldn't say he was 100%. I'm not taking anything away from Zakaria.
He said that afterwards.
Yeah, he certainly wasn't. You could tell that he wasn't 100%. The youngster absolutely chucks everything at it. Again, the kind of diving, obviously, knowing that that's going to happen, it's going to break the rallies up. There was a lot of sweat issues, which you get with Joel Makin. He's a heavy sweater, but I mean, it's just...
Are players spending too much time on the ground? We're seeing lots of players going to ground, and then that is obviously a stoppage in play. It's a glass floor, it needs wiping. Are players going down deliberately? Is it accidental? What's going on?
A mix of everything, Michael, to be honest. There's a lot of time spent unnecessarily on the floor. It's not a sport that's played on the floor. And this, at the end of this match, and this little spell we're seeing here, this is completely unnecessary. What's going to happen here, there's a big skid mark on the floor. The court cleaners are going to come on for about the 500th time. There's going to be less play and more stoppages. And again, I cannot say it any more times. The players need to take responsibility here and say, why am I spending so much time on the floor? Why am I looking for little contacts here and there that I can be knocked off and I can go to the ground and make a meal of this?
It's really interesting, actually, because when Paul Cole, before he got to Rob Owen, there were so many viral rallies of diving, which was so exciting. I mean, Paul Cole wasn't doing it to get a rest and to break up the play. He was doing it because he wanted to get the ball back. And then Rob kind of got into his movement, got into a bit more of the ball control and the tactics of the game, understanding the game and reading the game. Because players, if they don't read it, obviously the next port of call is to possibly dive. And he barely dived, for years and years and years, because his squash improved. And it's that balance between seeing a rally where you might see Rodriguez or Gregoire Marsh, all these players that will do it, which is amazing. It is very cool. But then to see these situations like we saw a bit last night, knowing fully well that is going to break the play and they're going to get a rest, and certain players know that they need a rest in certain situations. That was a physical match with Joel.
That's the thing, isn't it? It's finding that balance between, you don't want to take diving out of the game because it's quite dramatic and it's quite acrobatic and it looks cool.
But players can be using it.
But you can also,
That's the point.
and then the other side of the coin is you can actually injure yourself. Noor El Taib, who used to dive quite a bit, not to waste time, but to get balls back, she ended up giving herself a horrendous shoulder elbow injury at the US Open, and she was out for a long period of time. So, there's that side of it as well.
If it's obvious that a player's diving, should they be, docked a point? Should something happen? Should there be like a rule that if it's a deliberate dive, you didn't really need to, you've given yourself, like you said, 30, 45 seconds to recover physically whilst the court cleaners come on? That's disrupting the play, it's disrupting our enjoyment of the game as well.
Determining whether a dive is deliberate or not is very subjective, so I don't think that can be something that comes into the game. I think we're and myself were having a chat about this, and he came up with a fantastic idea which I really liked, and that was the person who has dived, the next player gets the opportunity to hit a winner. And if they don't hit the winner,
I thought you were going to say hit the person that's dived.
No, that's dangerous play, Joe.
No, you get a stroke.
And then if the rally isn't won off of that next shot, then you stop and you play a let, and that stops kind of the diving and the skid mark being there, and then the rally just stopping for a let ball.
More solutions, Joey? Any other solutions from your half of the camp?
I mean, the diving has become more prolific, particularly with this glass floor. Since the glass floor's gone in, diving on that floor ironically doesn't hurt the body as much as it can do on the wood floor, but it's certainly been quite apparent since we've had these glass floors that people are hitting the deck more in terms of diving. I wouldn't say the players are getting more deceptive, so therefore they're having to dive because they can't read each other. They're playing each other day in, week in, week out, so they know each other's game, watching on SQUASHTV. So, yeah, I mean, for me, it's a break-up of play. There are the usual suspects that will dive if need be, and we know who they are because that's their athleticism, and that's, just trying to get the ball back. But like I said before, it's the ones trying to break play. And
just going to jump in as well because I want to try and get one more bit in before we move on to the next bit of the show. Legacy. Is this style of squash damaging the legacy of squash? Your father, for instance, Jonah Barrington, what would he be thinking looking at this? Does it affect how people view squash? It's going to LA Olympics for the first time in 2028. And again, if you saw that for the first time, that is not a great showcase. Last night's two games in particular of what we want to be delivering day in, day out on the PSA Squash Tour.
I mean, I'd love to know what your dad thinks about all this because he'll certainly have an opinion.
Yeah, no, he will have an opinion. He watches a lot and we'll get his opinion on it, and he'll be very, very forthright. I mean,
what do you think he might say?
Well, I mean, the stoppage of play, you don't get the physical element. The physical element of squash is the big challenge, at this level, and it breaks it up continually. You get somebody that's had a hard rally and then they suddenly break it, and it's not squash in its entirety. It's not what it was. When you watch the old videos of the players back in the day, there was barely any strokes or lets.
Didn't your dad get carried off in Australia? Was it you were telling me the other night? Was that?
Yeah, no, against Jeff Hunt. I mean, he was that exhausted. He won the Australian Open. He had to go to hospital. He was on a drip for 5 days. He was urinating blood, which is pretty hardcore. But that was what he was keeping players on court for that period of time. But yeah, I mean, it's people say about free-flowing squash, but it's just nice to see the game being played with all four corners and players going around each other and dancing around each other and performing.
And Lisa, just on the LA 28 legacy as well, and the damage this sort of style of squash might create. We've still got a long way to go, of course.
Yeah, I think we need to understand that we're in a very lucrative position right now. We've gotten into the Olympics, and it's our chance to prove that we should be there and we should remain there forever, to be honest.
But would you pay money to come and see that last night?
No.
Joey, would you pay money to come and see
that?
that?
Absolutely. I'll go to the cinema.
I mean, yeah. What would you go and see?
F1 again.
Oh, it's one of your favourites.
Sixth time.
One more point as well on coaches. We talked about James Willstrop. I just wanted to discuss the impact of someone like Jonathan Power in Mohammed's corner as well, Zakaria's corner. He looked pretty ruffled last night as well, and I don't know if someone in your ear, you're talking about positive influences, but it didn't look like there was much positivity coming out of that camp.
No, I mean there was a lot going on. I mean the Zakaria situation, he had that one review that was like the magic review on pickups that were called down, they were up, and he kept using his review, rightly so, to then have it sorted out on the video review, and that happened 5 or 6 times, and that was obviously getting the backup and looking at the referees and the age-old having a go at the referee, blaming the referee. I mean, that was quite an unusual circumstance, Lisa, in terms of with the reviews, using it was just unreal. You thought at one point there's got to be a pickup that's down, and there wasn't. There was one possible double hit, but out of 5 pickups, they were all good and they were called down initially. I mean, that was obviously getting the back up as well. But
should these mentors of the sport, though, be setting an example? So it's disappointing that he's lost, but putting an arm around him, say, look, don't worry, reload, we'll go again.
Well, sorry, Lisa. The worst thing is to then start going on a blaming culture.
Yeah.
The blaming culture. I mean, honestly, like if I perform like an absolute clown on court, which I didn't do that often because I got beaten too easily. But my dad would just basically say, you're not welcome home. He wouldn't be going, oh yeah, well, if this and if that, and the referee could have done this and everything else. It happened at the time. Take it on the chin and get on with it. But there's this blaming culture, and it's just really, really. It's pathetic.
Yeah, I think it's easy in the moment to be quite emotive about it, particularly, well, it started when Zakaria was keeping his review, right? So as a coach, you're getting emotional. You're thinking, for goodness sake, like, just let the game flow, let it play. And that's where it started. He then obviously continued being quite emotional, and it's not a good look. But I personally would prefer a coach to say, you know what happened, let's go back and review that. Let's just watch that again.
Sorry, the other issue you've got with the blaming culture, which is really bugging me now, is this situation where, say, Jason Foster and Diego Elias, it's like, oh my goodness me, is Jason Foster going to referee Diego? And Diego doesn't need to have that in his mind, and Jason Foster doesn't need to have that in his mind. It's like, well, yeah, he's back on the next match with him. Deal with it, and that's what you have to do. You know, having this whole thing of it's, you know, them against us and everything, it's the last thing a player needs. They've got to deal with the opponent. You know, they've got to deal with who they have on court, not everyone else around.
I don't really know where to go from there, Lisa.
Well, straight to the bar, probably, Michael.
What's the matter? Why have you gone so flat? I don't understand.
No, I don't. I feel like we're having an honest discussion for the first time. I think squash has lacked it for a long time. I don't think you go deep enough to some of the issues at heart and who
you've
taking
got really
responsibility and accountability is.
No, I know, but you've gone really kind of flat and you've got teary-eyed. Are you okay?
No, I'm good.
The love of the game.
I'm good. It is the love of the game, and I do care very much about your game, and we're here to champion it. But obviously, if we see things that we don't necessarily agree with, well, these guys are here to vocalise it. I'll give you their emails later on. You can, of course, get in touch with your thoughts as well. We're always available for you, and it is an open conversation, and it's only the second event of the season as well. So a long way still to go. First diamond event of the year. But don't worry, there's still plenty more squash to come this season. Our next stop, of course, is Qatar. So there we go, not long to wait, 28th of September. I think that's 13 days away before we're in Qatar, another platinum event on the PSA Squash Tour. So not long to wait, as I said, till we move to the Middle East. Let's see what's coming your way this evening then here in Cairo. The backdrop is fabulous. We're at the Great Pyramids of Giza, and it is day 4, round 3 of the CIB Egyptian Open 2025. There's a rundown of all your matches starting at 7 o'clock. Reminder as well that if you don't have your SQUASHTV subscriptions, squash.tv, go and get those now whilst you're watching us here for free on the YouTube. And we can welcome Sourav Ghoshal, who's in the studio with us, and Joey Barrington is back as well. Well done, lads. There's a nice round up there of matches to look forward to this evening. We've talked about yesterday. We're parking that for a little bit there. Unless you've got anything to add, Sourav. You were listening to that conversation. Come on.
Yeah, I mean...
Come on. Have your say as well.
You're the president of the PSA.
Yes, I'm the
president.
Yes.
So therefore you have a responsibility for the sport.
I do. And I think
so then say it then.
And I think that there are issues there, and you know, on a personal note, I think we are all speaking to the players involved to try and see what they can do. There is an issue from both the player side as well as, like Joey mentioned earlier, some of the draconian stuff with the referee. It doesn't make for a environment which is conducive to you know, like really showcase the best of squash to the world.
And that's what we all want, isn't it?
Of course.
So how do we get there? Because we all like solutions. It's all very well moaning about
Look,
it.
I think every stakeholder, and in this case we're talking about the referee and the players. And don't get me wrong, the onus is primarily on the players over here.
Coaches
are on the outside, so they're not like they're not doing something inside the court right now. So I think the important thing for the players to understand is that if they want the sport to grow, And if they want to grow themselves as role models outside of the sport and bring more people in, then they have to entertain. And if they don't entertain, we're not going to grow as a sport overall. So there has to be a long run view from the players, where I feel like a lot of the players have a very, very short term understanding that, okay, today I need to win and I need to win at whatever cost, and it doesn't matter what happens, and they don't appreciate the impact that happens for the rest of the sport in general, for the general public. And I think that is a realization that has to take place. And we have a lot of young people at the top of the game right now, and they might not be as mature to understand that, and that is where the support team comes in to make them understand that they are actually bigger than just winning a particular match. It is about a lot more that goes into creating a sport that is going to be healthy and sustainable for a very long time.
It is tough with individual sports as well. We touched on it yesterday, Joey, but you have to be very single-minded, very single-focused, selfish. That is a squash player. They're doing it all on their own a majority of the time, and there's some real hurdles there to get over.
Yeah, and that's where you need someone that's kind of can step away a little bit from the kind of connect of a parent or a family member, and be quite brutal to say, look, you were behaving poorly, and you've got to stop that. Because
who did you have in your head then when you were thinking that? Where did you go to straight away as a person when you were doing that scenario?
I mean, for me, I feel Zakaria last night, he was he was getting pretty hot and bothered afterwards. He lost. I mean, it wasn't as tight as what you would have thought on the scoreline necessary to have that reaction, and he was hot and bothered. He was waiting for 17
though, bit of maturity, a few lessons to learn.
No, he's young. He's very, very young, and I hope he sorts that out, because he's an incredibly good squash player, and he's improving at an alarming rate again. And he's going to be right up in that fold, and he's going to be filling shoes of players that have retired, like Ali Farag, and he's got to give a good show on that side.
How much do we miss players like Ali then? Because he was, to many of the young guys coming up, he was the role model. He was the guy they looked up to, and he was sort of the pinnacle of squash. And then suddenly he's just dropped off the face of the earth.
Yeah, I mean, any sport will miss a player and a legend like Ali Farag, I think.
But are we feeling the impact now? Is that?
I mean, if people didn't understand it when he stopped, then they're obviously figuring it out now. He was great to watch, just the way he played the game. I think something that I would...
Wait, he lost the game as well, maybe?
Yeah, sometimes, but he at least did it in the right way, and people will remember him for a very long time for the right reasons, right? But I think something that I'd like to add as well, and we are talking about the world number one, obviously, because he's in the spotlight with Mostafa Asal. The fact of the matter is, he is a fantastic squash player in his own right. He is one of the most exciting players to play the game in a very, very long time, if he can cut out everything else, right? He's actually
expand everything else. Just again, this is just for
look,
everyone that's tuning in.
He has the skill level which can match one of the best players ever in the history of the game. You could take any player pretty much.
But what are the things he's got to cut out?
Yeah, so I think the one is he's got this inclination to kind of use his body or get in the way and just kind of sometimes it's not outright, but it's like nudges here and there, which kind of build up over a period of time, and then the other player gets aggrieved, and then the whole situation and the environment becomes very hostile. So he needs to cut that out.
This is for you, Joey. Does making an example of him? He's had a couple of bans now on the PSA Squash Tour. When he was at the height, when he was at world number one, made an example of, took his punishment, but now other players, are they looking for that within his game, and sort of that's where the extra contact comes in from the likes of Ali Abou?
I mean, there's an adaptability there, and of course, you're looking at that last match. I think, Ali Abou going into that had that in his head. He wasn't focusing on what he needs to do. He's a very athletic player and very physical in terms of, he's got a great endurance on him, and to extend rallies in these warm conditions is what he should have done yesterday. And he was, there was a lot you could tell he was already looking at the referee. He might have been stirred up beforehand, I don't know, in terms of from advisory and everything else, and that's what that needs to kind of go, because you've got to deal with what's on court at that time, and not the preempting. It's always the preempting. So yeah, players are also going to go the other way. So if you're called out for what you're doing and then they're playing you, then they're going to do that. That's that you see that in all sport.
Okay, so have you got 30 seconds for any final points you'd like to make there? What's our big learn? What's our big takeaway from today's discussion?
We need to have an intervention with all the players at the top of the game, try to get them to understand that they are such fantastic athletes, which they are. They have unbelievable skill levels, and what they can showcase with the aura that they can bring in just by playing the game is going to be so much more than what they're showcasing now. And to make themselves proud and to reach their true potential, they really need to do that.
Okay, thanks very much, gents. We'll continue that discussion long into the night, no doubt, and throughout the season. A reminder that you can get involved. A reminder too that we're heading over now to Squash TV. Go and get your subscription, squash.tv. We'll see you there with this beautiful backdrop of the Great Pyramids of Giza.